the loft is the most complicated. It requires the most work in terms of setting things up. Okay, and I don't follow the book exactly, like most things. I do things a little bit differently. So you're going to have to pay close attention. I do have this video on YouTube, so that'll help. I have not posted Tuesday's session and obviously I can't post tonight's session because we haven't had it yet, because I want to go through the recording in Camtasia and edit out, you know, questions and verbiage and taking roll and setting up stuff and all that. So, but I hope to have those posted over the weekend. And once I have them uploaded, I'll post the links in announcements like I normally do. And I also have opened up quiz 2 and quiz 3 for people. And I'm giving you like 2 weeks to get those 2 quizzes in. So make sure you pay attention and you get those quizzes done. Okay. All right. And Bert Belknap just joined us, so I'm going to add him. Okay. So we are starting on page 6-13. Before I start, I would just want to check in. Are there any questions or concerns from anybody? Is there anything that anybody needs before I start?
Yeah, at least, what about the body of the flashlight and the lens cap itself?
Those will come after this lesson.
Okay, so we are still going to be doing them.
Yes, we will still be doing them. So I'm going to be doing this switch tonight. I'll do the lens cap on Tuesday next week, and then the housing next week. So those will get done. And there's a couple of things I need to review with those with you guys. And then we'll start CSWA prep. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So once again, we're starting new. And this is going to be an inch part. And I'm going to save it in my homework. And I'm going to call it O-ring. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it switch. And save it. And I'm going to go to my file properties. And it'll be switch button. And then I'm going to say OK. All right. Now you may recall, for a loft to work properly, you need to have more than one plane. So we're going to create 2 extra planes, and we're going to make them parallel to the top plane. So I'm going to select the top plane right here in my browser, and then I'm going to go to reference plane on my ribbon, and I'm going to select the plane tool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some offset planes to that top plane. So I've selected the top plane in the browser. Then I go up to the plane tool on the ribbon. I select plane, and I'm going to say I want 2 planes. So I'm changing the number of planes, and I'm switching the offset so they're going below the existing plane. And I'm going to have them be 1/2 inch apart from each other. So you can kind of see that preview there, where I've got the top plane highlighted, and then I've got 2 planes being placed below it at 1/2 inch increments. And then I'm going to green check. So then over here, you're going to see the top plane, and then you're going to see plane 1 and plane 2. And I'm going to make the top plane visible. So you see top plane, plane 1, and plane 2. And because I'm doing a loft, and it's very easy to get lost and confused using lofts. I like to name my planes and my sketches so I can keep track of things. So I'm going to rename plane 1. I'll just press my F2 key to rename it, and I'm going to call this one middle plane. Okay, so I've got a top plane, and then I've got a middle plane, and notice it shows middle plane now for the name. Okay, and then I'm going to rename this bottom plane because I have top plane, middle plane, and plane 2. I'm going to rename plane 2, and oh, I think I'm going to go crazy, and I'm going to call that bottom plane. So I have 3 planes: top plane, middle plane, bottom plane. And Benny just joined us, so I want to give him credit for joining us. Right? Okay. So, any questions? Anybody needing help with the 3 planes? Everybody good? Okay. So, I am on the next page, which is page 6-14. Okay. And in the book, what she does is she has the planes go up, and that doesn't make sense to me because basically we're going to start down here and we're going to go up. So my first sketch is going to be on my bottom plane. Okay. So I'm going to select the bottom plane, and I'm going to say new sketch. And then I'm just going to use the center rectangle and draw a rectangle. And I want this actually to be a square. So I'm going to set the 2 sides equal. And I'm going to give it a distance of 0.5. And then you can see that it is fully defined because it's coincident to the center, 2 sides are equal, 0.5. And then I'm going to exit that sketch, and I'll switch back to an isometric view, and I'm going to call this sketch, oh, I don't know, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to call it bottom sketch. Because it's on the bottom plane, and it's on the bottom. Okay. So at this point, we have 3 planes: top plane, middle plane, bottom plane, and we have a bottom sketch. Anybody lost? Anybody confused? Okay. So now we want to place a sketch on the middle plane. All right. So I'm going to select the middle plane and go new sketch. Now I want to do a circle, but I want to set the circle so that the size of the circle is controlled by that square that we just placed. So I'm going to select the circle. I'm going to make it coincident to the center, and then I'm going to click up there. I'm going to make it tangent. Okay. So I'm going to add a tangent relationship between the arc and that line. So then if this circle changes, I mean, if the square changes, it's going to drive the size of the circle. Okay, because that circle always has to be tangent to the side of the square. And I'm going to rename that sketch middle sketch. And I'm calling it middle sketch. Why? Because it's on the middle plane. So far we've got 3 planes: the top plane, the middle plane, and the bottom plane. And we've got 2 sketches. the bottom sketch, which is a square that's half an inch square, and a middle sketch, which we don't have a size on, but you would have noticed that it was fully defined because the size of the circle is driven by the size of the square. And you'll see that in a minute. I'll demo it for you. Okay, so we have one more sketch, okay, and that is, we're going to be on page 6-16, and I'm going to, the last sketch, so we're going to have 3 sketches total, and that's going to be on the top plane. So I'm going to highlight the top plane, and I'm going to say new sketch. Okay. And the instructions in the book are kind of confusing to follow. What she's trying to do is she's trying to create a smaller circle where she wants the size of that circle to be controlled by the bottom sketch. So how does she do that? So first, she draws a center line. So she selects the center line tool, and she takes it from the center point all the way to the corner, this top upper corner. So even though I'm up on the top plane, notice I've got a coincident, and it's showing that it's coincident to that vertex of that bottom square. Do you see that? So that means that if the size of the square changes, the length of this center line is also going to change. So she created this relationship, if you will. All right. Now, the other thing she wants to do is when we place a center circle, what are the 2 things that Solidworks asks for? If I put in a center circle, it asks me for the center point, which is going to be this origin here, and the radius of the circle. So I need to locate the radius point. And I want my radius point to be the midpoint of this center line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a point using the point tool, and I'm going to place it right where the midpoint is. So I'm going to place it right there, and notice it says midpoint when I placed it. All right, so notice all I've got so far is a center line and a point, and the point's located at the midpoint, and the center line starts at the origin and ends at this corner of the bottom sketch, okay? Because there's a relationship there. These 2 guys are lined up. Okay, so now I'm going to go back here. So now I want to create this little circle, just like that. And notice that circle is fully defined, even though I didn't put any dimensions on it, because these 2 points had relationships there. So I'm going to exit that sketch, and I'm going to rename that sketch top sketch. And I'm going to call it top sketch because it's on the top plane. And I obviously have no imagination. Okay, so I'm going to save it. And I'm going to turn off the visibility of the top, middle, and bottom planes because I don't really need them anymore. And you can see that I've got these 3 sketches. I've got the bottom sketch that's a square. I've got a middle sketch that's a circle, and then I've got the top sketch that's a circle. Well, what if I change this dimension, this 0.5 dimension? You don't need to do it. You just need to watch me. I want to show you how the 3 sketches have relations with each other. So this bottom sketch is driving all 3 sketches. Okay, so if I change this to 2 inches or 3 inches, okay, and then I do rebuild, look what happens to the other two sketches. Did you see how they got really big? Because they were controlled by the size of that bottom sketch. So and then if I change this back to 0.5 and then do a rebuild, they go back tiny. See that? So that square is controlling the size of these two circles. And that's what these relationships were all about. Because if this circle always is going to be tangent to this line, it has to adjust the size if this size changes. Likewise, if this circle has this midpoint to this line, and this line is being driven by the length, and this distance here is based on the size of the square, this little circle is also going to adjust. So these three sketches have been designed so that they're all relating to each other. Any questions about what I just did? Everybody's good. Okay. Okay. Just did a quick pass down all the attendees. All right, so now we're ready to do our loft. Our loft is right here, the loft boss space. It's also called a blend. You may recall I talked about that. So I'm saying lofted boss space. Did you have a question, Matt? No, okay. And notice you set your profiles here. And remember that PowerPoint that I showed you, God knows how long ago that was, where I talked about lofts and blends. And I said, you can use multiple sketches and then you can do guide curves. In the book, she doesn't show you how to do guide curves at all. Don't worry about it because I'm going to show you how to do guide curves too. Okay, so you're going to have both. You're going to know how to do it. All right. So notice I have an move up and move down because the blend basically goes in the direction. And this is another thing. I can either select the sketches here or I can select them here. All right. So if I select the bottom sketch and then I select the top sketch, notice it gives me a nice preview. All right. And it goes straight from the bottom to the top. All right. But if I add the middle sketch, oops, I missed the middle sketch. Notice Solidworks gets confused because it's looping back on top of itself. So it's kind of giving me an error. But I can use this move up key and then the middle sketch gets included, but it's all twisty, turny around. All right. Well, it's got these little chains to kind of help me adjust the size. Now, if I want to see more of the chains, notice I can right click and notice I can say show all connectors. This is not in the book. All right. I'm going to tell you right now, she doesn't show you a lot of these tricks. Okay. I want to show all connectors. So I'm going to click on that. And now I've got more connectors that I can use to kind of adjust what my profile looks like. And you can kind of move it around and it's kind of cool. All right. So you can kind of see what's going on.
I would just like to say I am so thankful you just showed me that button because I've been lofting and basing and boundary like while I was practicing the last couple weeks. That's probably the most annoying part is when multiple sketches can't connect properly. And now I have these, now I can see the curvature points or whatever you called them.
Yeah.
The guide curves. Oh my God, thank you so much.
Yeah. So stuff that she leaves out of the book to me is like, well, this is the fun part, right? If you if you don't see,
absolutely,
you know, if you don't have this and these connectors, these are not necessarily they're acting like guide curves, but I'm going to show you how to have even more control in a minute. Okay. So, which is really important when you're doing things like designing wine bottles or tennis shoes or a bike helmet. You know, these are all, or a bicycle seat. Those are all things that use lofts, and you need to have that kind of control. So if you want to reset all the connectors, notice you can click reset connector, and it just kind of takes them to a default position. This is kind of useful if you kind of do something crazy, you know, and it looks like it's way messed up and you can't figure out how to get out of, you know, the corner you've backed yourself into. You can just take them back to the default position, and then you just green check. And now look how pretty it is. See that? So you can use those connectors to kind of make an adjustment. All right, so I'm gonna save. I've got my loft. So at this point, you guys should have your loft, all right? And then she just finishes up on page 6-17 with a dome. And we did a dome before, I don't know if you remember, on the light bulb. So it's the same thing that we did before. We're gonna select the top face here, and we go Insert, Features, Dome, right? And here's the thing, I want to uncheck where it says continuous dome, and I'm gonna change it to 0.2. And the reason why I want to uncheck the continuous dome is because this is a loft. If you have the continuous dome enabled, and she doesn't talk about, this is another thing she doesn't really talk about in the book, is that if you have it checked as a continuous dome, it's going to attempt to keep the dome kind of tangent to the surfaces leading up to the dome, and that can create issues. So if you want it to look a little cleaner with a loft, it's usually better to uncheck continuous dome, and I'm gonna check right there, and there's my switch. So this is the way the switch looks in the book. And that would basically be the part, and this is where I would normally just say, okay, we're done, and we can stop talking, blah, blah, blah. But I want to show you how to do guide curves, because that's not in the book, and that's something that I think is very useful, especially if you're going to do anything with a lot of lofts. So I'm going to, so now I'm off script, and you're going to have to pay closer attention. Now, you don't have to follow me. You don't have to do anything with me at this point, because you've got your switch part. This is all you need for your drawing. Make sure you look at Canvas at what I want you to do for your drawing, because the drawing is like cinchy easy, just 3 views, okay? And minimal amount of dimensioning because it's a lofted part. So make sure you check with Canvas before you do the drawing on this. So first I'm gonna roll back the dome, okay? And then I'm gonna delete this loft, okay? And I don't want to delete the child feature. Will it let me? Don't want to delete. Well, it's going to do it, so I'm just going to let it. Okay, so nope, it saved the dome. So I've got my bottom sketch, middle sketch, top sketch again. But I want to do my guide curves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my bottom sketch first, and I'm going to add a point in the middle of each of these lines. And the reason I want to do that is that way I have coincident points, or hooks, if you will, for my guide curve. And I'm going to do the same thing on the circle. I'm going to add points at the 4 quadrants of the circle. And I'm going to do that on my top sketch. I'm going to draw a point at each of the 4 quadrants. And you can have as many guide curves as you want. I'm going to switch to an isometric view so you can see. See, I've got those 4 points on each side. Do you see that? And the reason I put them there is, see how they're lined up with the right plane and the front plane? So now I can use the right plane and the front plane for my sketches, for my guide curves. Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier for me. Now, the more guide curves you have, the more you can define your geometry. So if I wanted to, I could say that I want a plane angled to the front plane and there, and I want an angle of 15. Okay, I probably need to do an axis between these two guys. All right. And then I'm going to have to do a plane between the axis and the right plane. And if I wanted to do like 15 degrees, there's my 15-degree plane. So I could have a guide curve on this 15-degree plane, but then I need to add points all along that so that it has a hook to it. So I'm not gonna, that's a little more complicated than I necessarily want to get, but obviously the more guide curves you have, the more control you have in how it's gonna look. So I'm gonna move that up a little bit, okay? So I'm just gonna do the right plane and the front plane. I didn't delete the plane 3 just in case somebody decides to be a wise guy and asks me to use that extra plane and to see how it's gonna look. So remember the rules for guide curves. 1 guide curve per sketch. Okay, this is where a lot of people get messed up. Okay, so I'm gonna start on the front plane. I'm gonna go new sketch. And I'm gonna use the line tool, and I'm gonna draw a line from here to here to here. And I'm gonna exit out. And I'm gonna call this guide curve 1. Okay, and you see how it is, it's connecting to this point, and this point. All right, so this is where a lot of people think they're gonna get cute, and they're gonna say, well, why don't I just mirror this line over to the other side on the front plane? Because then I'd less work, right? Except remember, the rule is 1 guide curve per sketch. So you can't do that. Okay, so I'm gonna go front plane again, and this time I'm gonna do a 3-point arc. So I'll say I'm gonna go from here, okay, to here, to there. Okay, there's my 3-point arc, and I've got a line. I'm gonna exit that, and I'm gonna call that guide curve 2. Okay, so now I've got 2 guide curves. Now I'm gonna go the right plane. I'm gonna do a new sketch, and this time I'm gonna do a spline. So I'll get very cutesy. Okay, so here's this is the Coca-Cola bottle, right? Or the Pepsi bottle, you know, or liquor bottles, right? They get more interesting with their shapes. I'm gonna exit that, and I'm gonna call that guide curve 3. Okay, and I can do 1 more guide curve, and I normally leave it up to the class if it'll be a line, an arc, or a spline. So let's do I can do a poll, I think. I can do a poll. I'm going to ask a question. Okay, poll 1. Guide curve 4. Okay. What should I use for my 4th guide curve? Okay. Line, an arc, or spline. Alrighty. And let me, and there it is. Where's my pole? Okay. And let me, there's my pole. Where is the, trying to pull 1. How do I present it? Okay. Let's see. And that was my question. So how do I get that poll out to you guys? Let's see. There it is. Save. And delete question 2. Save. Okay. So I've created a poll. Launch polling. Not everybody's voting. Got
I can't see it. Oh, wait, never mind.
made 5 more people get a vote. 4 more people to get a vote. 3 more people get a vote. One more person. Is that you, Elsa? That's the holdout? Okay, everybody voted. Spline wins by a landslide. And you know, it's interesting, just about every class, people vote for spline. Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay, so I'm going to go to the right plane, do a new sketch. And draw another spline.
When you did the sketches for the guide curves, did you just keep on re-clicking right and front plane?
Yeah, I just had to select each plane. Remember, each guide curve has to be in its own sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to each time select the plane that I was going to place the sketch on and then draw that sketch.
Yeah, I just missed that very, very beginning part when you said you did it. But okay, just re-click.
Yeah, every guide curve is its own unique sketch. So I've got 4 separate sketches there. All right, so now when I do my loft, okay, once again, I select my profiles. So I select my bottom sketch, middle sketch, top sketch. Okay, but notice it's kind of ignoring the guide curves. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. See that? See how it's not doing anything with these guide curves here? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the guide curves down here. I'm going to select guide curve 1, and notice as soon as I select guide curve 1, do you see how it's using that guide curve to change the profile over here? And then I'm going to add guide curve 2. See how this guide curve changed the profile? Now guide curve 3. See that? And then guide curve 4. See that? And then I'm going to green check. See the difference? This is where you do a hair blow dryer, a hair dryer, right? Or a shaver or razor. Those are shapes that that are created using Loft. Okay, so it gives you a lot more help. So then I can just come down, and my dome, I need to reselect that face because that face went away. And there's my dome. Okay. Whoops, I don't need that sketch. I don't want to sketch there. So now you can kind of see the value of guide curves, right? And that's basically the switch. How exciting that is.
You know, I redid the whole exercise just now really quickly just to do that. And I put in my guide curves and everything, and actually it said loft operation failed to complete.
Okay, so the first thing I'd want to know is, one, if all your guide curves are each guide curve is its own sketch. And the second thing is, remember, it won't work if you don't do these in the right order. So if you did top sketch, bottom sketch, and then middle sketch, it doesn't like it.
Is that the same for the guide curves too?
The guide curves, it doesn't really care what order you do the guide curves. So, but remember when I did the loft, if I move my middle sketch down, it's going to give me an error. Guide curve number 1 is invalid. And that's assuming that I don't have that.
I have a full preview. It didn't do exactly what it did on your screen when you didn't put them in order.
Yeah.
I think just maybe one of my splines was way too complicated or something.
It might have been that. It also, remember, is I made it's really important that the guide curves hits at least one point in each sketch. So if you didn't remember, that's why I had those extra points on the top, middle, and bottom sketch. So if your guide curve, let me come over here. If I take my guide curve and I get rid of this point right here and move it off, okay, that's really obnoxious. Whew. Okay, I could get an error on that. Because see how this guide curve is no longer hitting this sketch? I can get an error on that. It accepted it, but it could have just as easily said no. So especially with splines are so funky.
Yeah, it looks like my splines were underdefined to the point where I didn't want to do it. So.
But you can get some really cool. Look at that with that guide curve when I put it in like that. It's like you can get some really obnoxious shapes.
Completely agree.
Okay. So that is tonight's lecture. Yay. On Tuesday, I will be doing the lens cap, which is on page. Let's see. On page 6-20. Okay, so you have that. I will be grading your homework this weekend, so I'll have that. And then I'll have the lectures from Tuesday night and hopefully tonight uploaded, so you'll have that. And you have quiz 2 and quiz 3 to work on. Any questions before I hand you off to Elsa?
So it's kind of like a general question. Well, one of the biggest things. If you want to go, Zach, it's cool. I actually have like a long.
I just had a question about if you could go over putting the tables into the O-ring sweep exercise again, because my computer crashed when I tried it on Tuesday.
Okay, let's see if I can. You want how to get it in on the drawing sheet?
The tables that gave that where we made the small, medium, and large size. Remember your computer.
How to do the design table, or how to do?
I think it's the design table, yeah, because when you tried it, it crashed, and my computer did the same thing.
Okay.
But I was trying to reboot my computer when you fixed yours, and I didn't catch that.
Okay, so let me see if I can get my O-ring. All right. So let's see if it'll let me insert a design table here without crashing. So I'm going to go insert tables, design table. Okay, and then I go green check. And then it's going to give me the 2 dimensions. And I hold down my control key to select those 2 dimensions. And then I say, okay. And then I'm going to type in my sizes: small, medium, large. And they were 100, 150. Oh, and I have to make sure that I use the millimeter, or it's going to create issues. And 200 millimeters, and then 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, and then 5 millimeters. And then I'm going to left click outside of the table. I'm going to save, and you can see the design table there. And I'm going to say okay. But it's not giving me the new sizes. That's really weird. It's some kind of bug that I have not seen before.
Are you editing the design table right now?
Yeah, basically I'm redoing it. This is where it crashed last time. And And I'm not sure why it's not accepting the design table. I'm going to crash my Solidworks.
So now would be a good time for my question because it's
Sure, while I'm rebooting the Solidworks.
yeah. Because so one of the biggest pluses about this class I was really hoping for was like being able to like 3D print something, and obviously that's kind of out of the tables unless I get a hold of I think it's Rick and Levy from the Fab Lab. But like, would you be able to like put a link somewhere or some kind of tutorial that's easy to follow for making something simple and putting it into like a 3D printer, like even if it was like the same project you did with that last student where you guys made the ear plugs for his earrings.
Well, really all you have to do is you create your SolidWorks part and then you save it as an STL.
In STL, yeah, and then I just would load it into whatever software my printer would have, and then
Yeah.
print it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that for like complicated shapes, you want to make like support structures and stuff too.
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to helping Zach though.
Yeah. I'm not sure why it's not letting me add configurations. So it's kind of interesting. Yep. And it's like,
You did it once though, last class. It ended up reloading, and you had the options.
yeah.
This is the same thing that's been happening to me every time I've tried to do this as well.
Yeah. It's,
So I don't know if anybody else got it, but SolidWorks did like a little webinar thing. They've got some big user group thing, and the last one that they did was exactly this: how to make the tables. And the woman who was showing it, she actually had what looked like a little electric pump or electric motor and a casing, and they were going over like how to put in math because in Excel is pretty complicated. You can put equations and it'll give you shapes or whatever.
right.
Yeah, but she never did the drawings on that.
We never did the drawings on what?
On the pump. She never
yeah.
showed how to import the table like you did last week to show
Oh,
how to import the table and make the drawing change in accordance to what size you're clicking on. And that's the problem that I'm having right now is getting the table to show up in the drawing. I didn't have any problem making the table in the part file itself, but the drawing is just, it's,
well, in the drawing, you just insert a general table. You don't use the design table.
so
Yeah, and yeah.
well, that saves a lot of headache.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. You always try to make things more difficult than they really are, Jim.
Yeah, that's me all over the place.
They are more difficult than they need to be.
Well,
Mm.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no comment.
Yeah.
Is the screen frozen up now? Like, are things not happening on the screen? 'Cause my screen hasn't changed.
My screen's frozen too. I'm trying to
Okay.
end it and using my task manager, and it's finally okay. I'm having all sorts of lovely technical difficulties. Let's see. Okay, it looks like my Solidworks finally went away. Let me see if I can bring it back up. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
The screen just looks the same as it has been for the last couple minutes on my end.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to see if I can do a workaround without making it crash. Okay, so now here's my small. Okay. And I'm going to add another derived presentation. I'm going to call it medium. And I'm going to add another derived. So I've got a small, a medium, and a large, but you're not seeing any of the dimensions change. And this is
I'm not
for,
seeing anything. You were just typing. It's still the same ring you had from the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, same here.
let me see. Let me see if I can sign out and rejoin the meeting. Okay.
Is anybody else having the same situation where on their own computers they're trying to do that O-ring and they go insert tables and just nothing happens?
Yeah, I have the same issue, but I just rebooted SolidWorks and then it was okay. But I keep on having issues where the left-hand side of the browser, where we're supposed to have the configuration manager or something, I can just never find the tables again. But it comes up when you do the assembly or something.
I was able to make it, but because I don't have Excel installed, it didn't let me complete it. But since she showed you how to make the general table, it sort of didn't matter.
Well, the Bert mentioned this in the last class period, is that with your Laney student membership, you actually get a free Microsoft Office, which has Excel, Outlook, probably more things than you need. But I was able to install it on my PC, and it even recognized it while SolidWorks was running, which is, I guess, kind of nice. But it never ended up working, so whatever.
Well, it was Office 365, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, now you have the 3 different sizes on there.
Okay, so how I created those, and this is what I did was I went right click and I said add derived configuration, and then I gave it a name. So I just did that 3 times and created the 3 sizes. But you'll notice that when I say show configuration, nothing happens because I haven't actually defined what happens with each configuration. So if I go to the path, I can click on this dimension and click on configurations. And I can specify for each configuration what I want it to be. So I can say for the large configuration, or I can select all and say okay. And so for the large configuration, I'll say okay, and I'll say, let's see, I need to make sure that so I'm in the large configuration, and I'm gonna click here, click that, whoops, click that, and I'm gonna say configure dimension. And notice it gives me the 3 dimensions now. And so now I can come up and I can say for the small dimension, hopefully it'll let me edit it, 100 millimeters, and then 150 millimeters, whoops. And then 200 millimeters. So that's my workaround. And notice it applied it. Okay. Now I also have that sweep dimension. So I'm going to say I want to configure that dimension. And I'm going to click on that. And it shows me the dimension for that small one. And for the small, it's going to be 3 millimeters. Medium is going to be 4 millimeters. And large is going to be 5 millimeters. And I'm going to click apply. So now, and I'm going to save it. So now when I show a configuration, it adjusts the size. So that's my workaround when my design table is crashing and messing me up.
But this is still if you have Excel to use the table at all.
Well, I wasn't using Excel here.
Yeah, but you had made a table at first. So
right.
when
I
you
had
edited...
made a table at first, but I wasn't accessing that table because it was crashing every time I tried to use the table. So, I mean, you can see the design table, but if I try to edit it or do anything to it, it's going to crash or freeze my SolidWorks for some reason. So this was my workaround for not actually using a table. So if you didn't have Excel, you could do it that way, and you would not be using Excel.
Could you post this part on the YouTube video so we can follow along when our computers aren't crashing?
Yeah, I'm going to work on it this weekend and get it edited in Camtasia, and you should have it available to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I appreciate the question. I appreciate your patience while I was trying to troubleshoot all of this. Okay. Because I'm learning too. I'm learning too. Yeah, Andre?
I said it's not like we're doing anything.
Well, no. Well, it's not like there's any sports on TV, right? Yeah.
I don't watch sports anyway, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Manchester United.
Manchester United. Okay. Any other questions before I hand you off to Elsa? Okay, please don't forget to do quiz 2 and quiz 3. I did see a bunch of homework from lots of people, so I'll be working on that this weekend too. And I did mail homework out earlier this week. If you haven't put in your address or can't access the worksheet, email me. I'll add your address to the worksheet for addresses so that I can mail you back your homework. Okay. All right. So I will see you on next Tuesday. Yeah.